I would like to welcome everyone to the Roswell Women's Club Mayoral Candidate Forum. My name is Kay Smith, and I am the chairman of the Public Affairs Committee this year for Roswell Women's Club. My co-chair is Laura Hamling, who is just coming down the hallway. Many of you may have been to these events in past years, and you'll find that this is a slightly different format. We have 5 candidates running for mayor, plus a number running for the city council posts, and it became clear to us right after the filing deadlines that we could not handle the entire panel of everyone running for election on November 7 in a single event. So we chose to do mayors only. There will be a second event, which is being termed a debate, that will be October 11th at High Meadows School. So that event is listed on most of the community calendars. Please put that on your own calendar and attend. Before we go any farther, I would like all of you to please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. I would like to ask any elected officials who are in the audience to stand and introduce themselves. Anybody here who is already elected? Yes. Anyone else? Oh, yes. Well, you have to stand up. Now I would like to ask any candidates. Oh, I'm sorry. Ah, all right. Is that it? We've had a request to stand and repeat your names. You two in the back? Or one? Okay. All right. Well, thank you. If that is everyone, we will move on to candidates who have filed for election. Not you 5 up here, but those that are running for the city council posts.
Yep. I'm Joe Biontek. I'm running for post 3.
I am Gus Ador and running for post 6.
Alexander, post 3. I'm Matt Tizer, running for post 5.
Aaron Parrish, and I'm running for post 6.
I'm Sean Grower, and I'm running for post 3. Mike Diamond, I'm running for post 3.
Very good. Did we get everyone? No. Okay. Is that it? Yes, I think so. All right. At this point, I would like to introduce the president of Roswell Women's Club, Cheryl O'Donnell, who has some additional remarks. Cheryl?
Thanks, Kate. Thank you for joining us this evening. The Roswell Women's Club is an all-volunteer, non-profit 501c3 service organization whose common interest is to support our community in the areas of educational scholarships and grants, human services, cultural arts, historical preservation, and urban improvement. We have a long, successful history of hosting events just like this one tonight. This particular event, however, is a little different. As Kay said, we're co-hosting with both Positively Roswell and Roswell Next. We thank them for their cooperation. As evident by the large attendance here tonight, this forum has been very, very popular. In fact, we received a record number of questions for each candidate this year. For the sake of time, some questions have been combined. In addition, the moderators have attempted to select questions that were asked most often, reflecting the interest of the voters. At times, it might appear that a question shares an opinion or makes a statement. Please keep in mind this does not reflect the opinion of your hosts or the moderators, but rather the opinion of the one submitting the question. Also, please understand, Roswell Women's Club has and always will hold a politically neutral position with regard to any candidate running for public office. Allow me to introduce our two moderators. Catherine Mulkey is an attorney specializing in matters of adoption, estate planning, and probate. She's a graduate of the University of Georgia and Georgia State University Law School. Catherine serves on the board of the Foster Care Support Foundation and is a current member of the Board of Trustees of Roswell United Methodist Church. After last November's election, Catherine organized the Roswell Bipartisan Book Club to allow women of all faiths, backgrounds, and beliefs to gather and respectfully discuss issues facing our world. She enjoys living in her hometown of Roswell with her husband Scott and her 3 daughters. Thank you, Catherine. Jack Stevens is Canadian by birth and a Georgian by choice. He had a 25-year broadcasting career in Canada before becoming a real estate broker with RE/MAX right here in Roswell. He was inducted into the RE/MAX International Hall of Fame in 1996. Jack is a 31-year member and past president of the Roswell Rotary Club and is currently principal owner of Crabapple Beds and Bones boarding kennel in Milton. Jack resides in Milton with his wife, Ruth. Thank you, Jack. And so on behalf of Roswell Women's Club, Positively Roswell, and Roswell Next, I thank you for your participation and your presence tonight. We're so glad you're here. Now Catherine will outline the rules of the evening.
The first rule is if everyone could please silence your cell phones. Probably best to turn them off in case you're not. I'd like to introduce our timekeepers, provided by Roswell Women's Club Sherry Broadway, who is a former president of the club, and her husband Jim. A drawing was held earlier to determine the order for the candidates. The candidate drawing number 1 is seated on the left, Mr. Jenkins, and others follow in order. In a few moments, all the candidates will be given 2 minutes to introduce themselves and explain why they believe they are most qualified and best qualified to be the next mayor of Roswell. When questioning begins, the first question will go to the candidate who drew number 1. All other candidates, in turn, will have an opportunity to answer that same question. For the second question, we will begin with the candidate who drew number 2, again giving all candidates an opportunity to answer in order. We will continue in this manner for as long as time permits. Each candidate will be allowed 1 minute for each question, and at the conclusion, each candidate will have 1 minute to present a closing statement. And let's get started.
All right, good evening, candidates. First question, we'll start I'm sorry, the 2 minutes. Go ahead, Catherine. You explain the rules. The legal will explain the rules.
Okay, you each get 2 minutes, so I think we will start with Mr. Jenkins for your 2 minutes.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to say that the City of Roswell's Recreation and Parks Department won the Gold Award for the very best Parks and Recreation Department. So let's give them a hand. My name is Lee Jenkins, and I'm here this evening to earn your vote. I want to thank the Roswell Women's Club for hosting this incredible event. I also want to thank all of the citizens of Roswell for coming out this evening. It's great to see everyone. Traffic is the #1 complaint in the city of Roswell. That is why it is so important for us to look at innovative solutions that include technology and that include cooperative partnerships. So I want to talk about those two things right quick. As many of you know, many of our road problems stem from state-owned intersections and roadways like Holcomb Bridge Road and like Highway 9. This requires work with the state and regional officials, as well as the Georgia Department of Transportation. So I am the leader who can represent this city when it comes to building a relationship with the Georgia Department of Transportation. We need to offer GDOT projects that are shovel ready so they can send money our way and not just to the city of Alpharetta. We must also address our economic vitality. Targeted economic growth in Roswell is very important because we have limited commercial areas to develop and to redevelop. So we have to grow commercially. We must also find a way to sustain economic vitality on the east side of Roswell. Target is gone, Kohl's is gone, Aqua Blue is gone, and that's unacceptable to me. So I want to earn your vote because I am a leader that unifies, I'm a leader that can bring the city together, I'm a leader that has vision, and I'm a leader that can bring the world-class talent that we have in Roswell together to make us a great city. Thank you.
Ms. Sidhom?
Can you guys hear me? I'm a little bit hoarse. Okay, you can still hear me. Great. Well, first of all, I just want to say it is such an honor to share a stage with so many incredible community leaders here in Roswell. And I definitely want to give a shout out to the Roswell Women's Club because at every point in our nation's history where we stood at a moment where we had to decide between promise and danger, where the world would either move forward towards unity and widely shared prosperity or move apart. Organizations like the Roswell Women's Club have been initiating daring discussions to bring community leaders like these on the stage who are vying to represent you, to bring us all together in pursuit of our common values and goals. I do look forward to earning your vote, but I'm going to be very honest with you. I am not a politician. I am an activist, I'm a passionate Democrat, and I do believe that there's a huge opportunity in Roswell to bring in progressive values, leadership with vision, and really bring in a legacy that we can all be proud of. There's no reason why so many of our neighboring cities have surpassed us economically. We have all the resources in the world. We have the best and the brightest individuals in America sitting right here in this room right now. Roswell can easily become the next American dream destination of the South, but we also have to be mindful of our obligations to make this place not just a beautiful place to live, but a beautiful place to work. I will work with all businesses to encourage growth in our community, but I also believe in smart development and maintaining the historical character of Roswell. My goal is to earn your vote because I believe that every citizen in Roswell deserves to be happy, wealthy, and healthy. Thank you.
Mr. Horton?
All right. I'm Don Horton.
I've been married to Gail for 47 years. I have 2 children and 5 grandchildren, all living in the area. I'm running for mayor because I want all of our children to inherit a rising Roswell. A Roswell that succeeds in keeping the charm and character that drew each of us here. A city that is unique and set apart from its neighbors. The city I envision is one where businesses carry the majority of the tax burden, not the homeowners. We need to adapt, and grow carefully and intelligently, not to be like Alpharetta or Sandy Springs, but to be able to compete with them when it comes to attracting new business. It's a city where smart technology can improve the traffic flow. It's a Roswell that will be as historic and special for the future generations as it is for us today. To build the rising Roswell that I envision, saying no to growth is not enough. All of us, the mayor, the city council, and our citizens must work together to forge consensus and get things done that benefit everyone in our community. As a councilman the last 2 years, I helped change the Unified Development Code to protect our established neighborhoods from high-density development. I created term limits for council members and pushed the redevelopment of Roswell's old, tired shopping centers. I pressed for protections for the historic district and was the first to support the purchase of Mimosa Hall and Gardens. For over 2 years, I have been a tireless advocate for the purchase of the Seven Branches property. As your mayor, I will continue to advocate for what's best for this city and its residents. With more than 30 years in the corporate world, I bring a business-minded approach to government. We will innovate, renovate, to attract jobs that match the needs of our community. My pledge to each of you is that I will listen and focus on what's best for this city and its residents. I look forward to sharing more of my vision for a rising Roswell.
Mr. Litten.
Why should you consider voting Michael Litten for mayor? I will bring a think different approach to Roswell's leadership position. I've had an almost 40-year career in sales, marketing, management, and negotiating with a myriad of different diverse and different companies, from startups to Fortune 500, in one of the most difficult markets to sell into, healthcare. And I will apply that business acumen to Roswell's leadership position because I believe the chief role of Roswell's leader, CEO, if you will, is to bring high-paying jobs to Roswell so that we can live, work, and play in the city we love. And I see the old Herman Miller facility as a brilliant example of adaptive reuse on Mansell Road. When I moved here 33 years ago, they were employing mostly hourly workers. Today, as the GM Tech facility, they're employing 1,700 folks with an average salary of $88,000 a year. And I think the old Kohl's and Super Target in East Roswell are great targets for that kind of think different adaptive reuse. And I will apply my sales and marketing skills in working in conjunction with Steve Stroud and Roswell Inc. to go out and court innovative businesses that are considering locating to the Atlanta area and others to let them know Roswell is open for business. Over the course of the evening, I'm going to share with you additional specific deliverables that I plan to execute if I'm elected. Litten listens, Litten leads is not an empty alliteration. It's at the core of my being. So thank you in advance for a think different, vote Michael for mayor.
Ms. Henry.
Thank you all for coming out today. Thank you to the sponsors and the Roswell Women's Club. They always do such a great job with these events. And also I'd like to thank my family and volunteers and supporters. I couldn't do it without you. I'm Lori Henry. I served on council from 2001 to 2009. I went back into the private sector. I took care of my parents during their final years, and I started a Roswell-based business and was reelected to council this last April. Roswell is in need of leadership. Leadership should be inclusive, innovative, build consensus, and consider the rights and wishes of every member of our community. I pledge to you as your next mayor that I will set the tone and tenor of my administration as one of inclusiveness and consensus building. As your next mayor, I will represent you and your vision for Roswell, not special interests. I pledge to you there will be transparency and fiscal responsibility at every level of government. It's your money. Our economic vitality will be at the top of my agenda. We must focus on our vacant and underutilized centers, attract business and office, the component that we are missing in the live, work, play equation. We must protect our existing neighborhoods. We must preserve our historic district. We must stabilize our existing apartments, not build new ones. This is a critical time for our city. On January 1st, our longest-serving council members will have 2 years under their belts. We will have 4 new council members, a new city administrator, and a new mayor. I am the only candidate for mayor that has the history, institutional knowledge, experience, and leadership skills needed for this job. Roswell needs new leadership now, and I have the experience and the passion to lead. I'm Lori Henry.
All right, we will begin with the questions. Just as a reminder, each candidate will have 1 minute to answer each question.
And we begin with Mr. Jenkins. Tell us about an initiative, if you have one, that you have developed or led in Roswell and what it has done for our community.
I have led several initiatives. Number one, 5 years ago, I started a church with 15 people, and now we're over 1,000 members. We have served the Roswell community by feeding the hungry, by clothing the naked, by partnering with nonprofit institutions like North Fulton Charities and many others. I've also been very involved in a movement called the Conversations Movement that I started. With all the racial unrest in our country, I wanted to be a bridge builder, and so we could talk about these things and build relationships. And so this movement is taking off all around the country through churches and even businesses. Fortune 500 type companies are calling me to know how did we get people together to talk about these sensitive issues. So a lot of things I have been doing have been benefiting the city of Roswell.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Sidhom. Same question.
All right. So I had the honor of serving as the outreach coordinator for St. Mary's Coptic Orthodox Church here in Roswell, Georgia, while I was in college. My family actually came to this country about 25 years ago to escape religious persecution for their Christian faith. And I've been a dedicated member of that church, and I've led a lot of community efforts to make sure that we bring young people back to God and to also improve the lives of those around us and be the change we'd like to see in the world. I, as an activist, have led several efforts to bridge the 6th. After the 6th district election, our community was so divided. I hosted several events with key community leaders regarding steps and initiatives we could take to make this community more inclusive and to stop all the hateful rhetoric. I think it's time for a change, and I've been happy to say that my track record as an activist has been holding people accountable and changing the world, starting in our own backyard. Thank you.
Mr. Horton.
There are a couple things. All of you have heard of the 7 Branches Legacy Project, and just recently the City of Roswell approved purchasing part of that property. I've been leading that effort for the last little over 2 years. Before I got on council, actually, I started working on that project. And as I got on council, I have been pushing practically every time we had closure to get something done with that property. I brought the property owners to the negotiation table. They were not willing to negotiate with the City of Roswell up until I sat down with them and asked them what they wanted. On top of that, I've also worked and was the first person to advocate for purchase of Mimosa Hall. Even before, just after we knew it went on sale, went on the market, I was in front of the city council in closure asking to purchase that property. And I've been pushing for it ever since, and we have obviously done it most recently. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Litten, same question, sir.
One of the things I'm most proud of is back in 1996, we had the opportunity to purchase 38 acres of land down on Riverside Road that was slated to be developed townhomes. That property, if you know Don White Memorial Park, abuts Martin's Landing River Lodge. We worked with the Trust for Public Land, and when I say we, it was L.W. Tucker who led the charge on the Seven Branches project. I had the opportunity to work with him all the way back in 1996. We raised money to prevent that land from being developed, and that 38 acres has now been saved.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Henry, same question.
Thank you. Years ago, I was an advocate of purchasing the Big Creek Park property. I have been an advocate of the river property. I have also been an advocate for Seven Branches, as well as the purchase of our historic homes. I was on council when we purchased Barrington. I am on council now when we purchased Mimosa. Also, I would like you to know that some of my initiatives were I authored the big box ordinance that prevents new big boxes coming in and ultimately prevents empty big boxes. I wrote the steep slopes ordinance with Seven Branches in mind. I wrote that with Carter Lucas, with that property specifically in mind. I've got numerous other issues that I brought forward in the city of Roswell. The tree ordinance, we tightened it up. Also, I had a group that we planted over 200 trees in the city of Roswell, and that's just to name a few of the accomplishments.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question will start with Ms. Sidhom. City Council approved plans for a city green between City Hall and Highway 9, but have not appropriated money to move forward with construction of the city green. Do you support construction of the city green?
I mean, I absolutely support having more green space. I think the best part of living in Roswell is all the trees. I lived in Chicago for 6 very short months, and the one thing I missed is the beautiful green spaces, parks, and places to enjoy the environment here in Roswell. So to answer your question, I do support the construction of the city green, but I would need to really see what the budget is and see what bids we have at the time. I come from a construction project management background, so it's very important for me to see multiple bids from a diverse group of contractors, because I think for a long time we've been paying way too much for not a lot of work. So as long as we get our money's worth.
Thank you. Mr. Horton.
Yes, this has been a fairly controversial project from its beginning. We have a group of people that want this city green. We have a group of people that don't want it. I've talked to numerous people in the community, including the veterans that were behind the project with the Faces of War Memorial. And I have promised that I will want that on a referendum so that the citizens of this community can vote on it. And that way, everybody that wants it will have an opportunity to have their voice, and everybody that's opposed to it will have their voice. We'll need to pass a bond issue in order to fund it, and the best way to approach this, I think, is to give it to the community to vote on it.
Mr. Litten.
I think in this case you need to embrace the genius of the and. I'm opposed to and have been leading a protest out there marching to oppose the clear cutting of a half a football field worth of trees and call it a city green. The idea originally, as I understood it, was to activate that space. So my idea to activate that space is to do what the citizens of Roswell said they wanted done in the 2030 Imagine Plan, and that was more music. So I have a proposal in hand from Tom Ladow. Tom Ladow is the gentleman that runs Live in Roswell, to host concerts there, $30,000. To use Janet Russell's brilliant terminology, tunes in the trees. Or to add my own adaptation to that, concerts from the back porch of Roswell. And those are just a couple of my ideas to activate that space. I also have a proposal in hand for $30,000 to light that space, creating a magical enchanted forest. So I believe we can activate it for a lot less money than $7 million, protect those trees, and not move that sacred Faces of War Memorial.
Ms. Henry.
I must say, I'm not quite certain why we want to make City Hall a destination space. However, having said that, I am opposed at build out. The city green would cost upwards of $17 million. I can think a lot of things that we can do with $17 million, including revitalizing many of our vacant and underutilized shopping centers and creating destination spaces on the east side. Roswell City Hall has beautiful grounds. I completely support beautifying those and also lighting them, but as a destination space with millions of dollars, I cannot support it.
Mr. Jenkins.
I agree that we should let the citizens decide what to do on that, but I would like to offer another perspective, and that is a lot of the economic energy dies down after Patsy's. In other words, after Canton Street, beyond that, it really kind of dies down. So this might be something to consider that could be a catalyst for more economic activity and more economic vitality. In terms of the trees, I think we have to really be careful about that because if it's going to be called City Green, how can we call it green if there are no trees? But I think we need to look at whether or not this could be a destination location, that maybe it could be an extension of Canton Street and it could spur the economic activity that we so desperately need in this city from a commercial standpoint.
All right, question 3. For question number 3, we'll start with you, Mr. Horton. Which areas, in your opinion, can use the most traffic improvements, and how would you help solve our traffic issues?
Well, there's several areas that are just terribly congested. One is right out here in front of City Hall, or out there at Canton Street and Highway 9. The other was on the east side, the Holcomb Bridge corridor, on the Holcomb Bridge 400 intersection, and then, of course, Highway 9 going down toward the river. There are some projects that are in play right now. There's the historic Roswell Gateway that will be funded with this T-Splosh. That's going to help some of the congestion in that particular area. They're also going to have some redesign of the Holcomb Bridge 400 intersection. And then there's the Big Creek Parkway. That's all part of the T-Splosh. One of the other things I think is important is that we consider the use of smart city technologies, which uses sensors that are further away from the traffic light, and they catch traffic as it's coming, and they sense the traffic flow in real time and use the Internet of Things to help traffic flow.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Litten, same question.
In the spirit of the best ideas coming from the citizens of Roswell that are passionately engaged, I would throw out the challenge to all of us. What can we do creatively to think different about how we can incent our young people to take the public transportation that's available to them and get them out of their cars and their parents' cars when they go to school? Because I think we could all agree that traffic is at its best in this city when school is out of session during the summer and during spring break, number one. Number two, we have to address the issue that is facing us where 90% of our workforce is leaving Roswell to get a high enough paying job to work in Roswell, and 90% of our workforce is coming into Roswell. We must address that or we will never get our hands around this traffic issue.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Henry?
Well, because so many of us Roswellians leave in the morning, we come back in the afternoon, because we have to go to Alpharetta, Sandy Springs, Perimeter for our jobs, Atlanta. My proposal is we need to bring in office. We have 100,000 trips out of the city in the morning and 100,000 coming back in the afternoon. That's called rush hour traffic. If we can create office and attract businesses for the types of jobs that our residents are looking for, we can live, work, and play in the city of Roswell. That will help traffic.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Jenkins.
Roswell has been a cut-through city. What we see is about 80% of the people leaving to go work outside of Roswell. Another 80% who don't live in Roswell are coming in. And many of the people from Cherokee County, from Forsyth County, from Gwinnett County use Roswell as a pass-through city. So we have to talk about our infrastructure expanding. One of the ways to do that is we need to include smart signals, increase stacking and turning lanes. We also need to be concerned about connectivity. T-Splosh will deal with some of that. I believe my ability to build consensus and to bring a fresh perspective and to work with the Georgia Department of Transportation is very vital. For instance, Alpharetta has a bridge from North Point Parkway to West Side Parkway, and they got the money for that, yet we have roads that need to be worked on. So we have to do a better job of attracting resources that we can use for our traffic and in our infrastructure.
Thank you, sir. And Ms. Sidhom, your same question, please.
All right. I think we can all agree traffic is a nightmare on your morning commute and on your way home. And I agree with the same locations that Councilman Horton mentioned as areas of improvement. But really the issue with transportation is that we have a trolley that goes to a dead end to nowhere. You can hop on a trolley to go to a bar, but if you're a single mom, you have a really hard time just even getting to the store to get groceries. We have a rapidly aging population, and we need to think of diverse solutions to meet and accommodate those needs. There's a gentleman who attends church with me. He walks about 4 miles every day just to clean the church. Now, I think someone with that level of dedication and commitment to our Lord and Savior deserves to at least have a ride when it's raining. So I encourage and support more options for public transportation. And if we're going to wait 20 years to get a roundabout made to address our traffic solutions, I don't think we're going to see that happen. So I think with fresh leadership and new ideas, you will see a much easier commute. Thank you.
Catherine?
Mr. Litten, please tell us about 2 things you want to accomplish in Roswell that are unique to you and probably would not be brought up by the other candidates.
Number 1, we do a lot of studying in Roswell, and here's one. So recreation parks, historic cultural fairs, needs assessment, master plan. And in that, Roswell residents overwhelmingly said by a 68% margin, they want an indoor aquatic facility. And I have a proposal in hand and renderings from a $250 million international German company, Losberger, to do just that. In the heart of Roswell, at the Roswell Area Park Pool, brilliantly adaptive reuse of an asset we already have, so that our swimmers and divers don't have to leave the city to ply their trade. And I can tell you as a swimmer, we could also, because that pool is 50 meters by 25 yards, think of the vision of our leaders 45 years ago when that was created. We could host swim meets, and there's a lot of downtime between events. So perhaps residents or tourists would come into Canton Street and buy and eat.
Ms. Henry, same question.
Several of the things that I'm planning on doing when I become mayor revolve around economic development. And I feel very strongly that the city of Roswell has been very reactive as opposed to proactive. And what I'd like to see in the city, and I've been talking to numerous economists as well as economic development experts, and what we really need in Roswell are 2 things. We need a staff member focused on economic development, someone that is proactive, out looking for office development as well as business development. We also need a board of citizens that is an economic development board that looks at all of the areas of the city and what we need to do in those various parts in order to be proactive.
Mr. Jenkins?
In the world of sports, you can have all the talent in the world, but if the team doesn't work together, the team won't win. We have world-class talent here in Roswell, but we're not working together. We're not unified. The culture has been mean-spirited. The lack of civility has been prevailing, and we're not going forward like we should be. We're actually getting stuck. So one of the things I believe I can bring to this city is teamwork, is unity, is respect, is for us getting on the same page, working together, improving the morale of the staff, and then reaching back in the community and making Roswell one community. So I plan on unifying this city so we can move forward and so we can do great things.
Ms. Sidhom?
Well, I am very passionate in the belief that we can change the world if we start in our own backyard. Climate change is a huge issue, and I can guarantee you there is an opportunity to bring in clean energy and renewable energy jobs and also lower the tax burden. The Super Target that's in East Roswell is completely underutilized space. If we transform that into a renewable energy hub, we could sell the energy and finance a portion of the city's operational costs. With that money, we could finance a tax break for our senior citizens because we have a rapidly aging population and everyone's about to retire, guys. If you want to keep Roswell money in Roswell, you cut taxes for seniors. And I guess the last thing is inclusivity at every level of government and providing wraparound services so that single parents, so that moms and parents all over Roswell will be able to provide their children with adequate education and resources for a successful future beyond their high school diploma. Thank you.
Mr. Horton?
Over the last 20 years or so, I've developed some pretty significant relationships with state officials, state elected officials, as well as people in Fulton County. And one of the things that I'm most concerned about is some of the empty stores over on the east side of Roswell. And I want to engage the Fulton County Development Authority because they have tools that can help us provide incentives for the property owners. And I must tell you, the property owners right now are not inclined to sell the property unless they have some kind of incentive to do that. So by bringing in the Fulton County Development Authority with Al Nash and his group, we can certainly have an opportunity to approach those property owners with some incentives that might make that work. One of the other things that I want to champion is a town architect. A town architect will have a more global view of the city and be able to provide us with a look at a project as it's coming to City Hall before it even gets to the planning and gets into the application process. A town architect can take a look at the project and say, this fits in this area, or it doesn't fit here, but it fits over here.
All right, question 5. We'll start with Ms. Henry. Nationwide, the demand for retail space has declined with the rise of internet sales. Roswell now has more retail space for lease than the market will support. Developers have proposed redeveloping old strip centers into mixed-use developments. And our question to you is, should apartments be allowed as part of mixed-use developments? And if so, what density of apartments is acceptable?
I am opposed to building new apartments in Roswell. And the reason why I'm opposed to that is we need to stabilize our existing apartments, not build new apartments. We have about 25% of our housing stock is apartments to date. And that is also our affordable housing in the older apartments. We need to stabilize those. We need to make them safe for our residents. And also, we need to really look at partnering. Not only our police department looking at ways to make it safer, but we need to reach out to our church groups and various other groups. They go on mission trips to other countries. I'd like them to take a mission trip here and help with our children.
Thank you, Ms. Henry. Mr. Jenkins.
We certainly have plenty of apartments in Roswell. We can also redevelop some of these apartments. For instance, they could be used for workforce housing, and we have plenty of apartments. Now, what we really need is more mixed use. We need more commercial development. We need some places that are similar to apartments. We need more businesses in Roswell. 28% of our tax base comes from our our commercial tax base, and 68% comes from residential. So we have to increase our commercial tax base. And one of the ways we do that is getting more businesses in, but we don't need more apartments. What we need to do is take better care of what we have. And I believe we have the opportunity to do that.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Sidhom, same question.
Well, I actually, unlike my opponents, am in favor of diversified housing and providing people with options for affordable housing. Absolutely everyone on this panel has a great point about bringing the landlords to the table to improve the existing apartments that we have. But the reality is that most people in this room, your property values have probably doubled. But meanwhile, we have shoved people into pockets of poverty, into conditions that none of us would ever live in. And these are our neighbors, and it's about time we start taking care of them. And if we want to be a city that is as economically competitive as Manhattan, but still has that suburban feel, we could be like White Plains, New York overnight. There is no reason why we should be sending millennials away to other cities because we are scared of apartments. I understand that the use of high density zoning is a buzzword for everyone here, but I want to tell you that there's nothing to be afraid of. You deserve your personal property rights, and you deserve to have a better city where everyone has an opportunity to succeed. Thank you.
And Mr. Horton.
I'm much more interested in seeing us revitalize some of the apartment complexes that we have, clean them up, but of course this is going to require some incentive from the city for those property owners. The property owners are where the problem is. They have cash cows, and they don't have any significant reason to change how those apartments look or feel. So in some way, we're going to have to provide some incentive for them to do something to change the look and the condition of those apartments. And it is a place where most of our lower income individuals and workforce housing happen to live right now. So it is something that I think is really important that we as a city take the initiative to get done.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Litten, your thoughts.
Two things. I attended the Affordable Housing Authority meeting and came away with the impression that we have an opportunity in Roswell to be best in class. And I like to model best in class. So I went out to the experts in the state I used to live in Colorado, because they've been dealing with that kind of issue in Denver, Aspen, Vail, all the ski towns, very affluent ski towns. And they have the same problem Roswell has. We have, again, 90% of our workforce leaving Roswell, 90% coming in. And the second prong of that approach is we have to address how we bring businesses into Roswell so that we have high enough paying jobs so the residents can stay in Roswell and don't have to leave. And adaptive reuse like Herman Miller is an example of that.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry. Next question. Mr. Jenkins, the city has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on studies. However, these studies are oftentimes shelved and not utilized for progress. Tell us which project you would like to see go forward that has been subject to a city-funded study.
One of the reasons we haven't been moving forward is because we haven't been unified. We haven't been working together as a team. And as I said before, we're stuck. And there are many projects on the table. So the first thing I would do is to increase our infrastructure. Some of the T-plus money would be used for the reconstruction of the Holcomb Bridge Road exit. Of course, Big Creek coming across 400 into the west side of Roswell. We, of course, need to address Highway 9, particularly from Azalea to the downtown area. It's a very dangerous road. And so I would like to address our infrastructure, our streets, our safety on those streets. That's the first thing I would do.
Ms. Sidhom, same question.
Well, so the city has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars on projects that never happened. I don't know if you're familiar, but the last bond referendum we did was regarding reducing the traffic burden on Holcomb Bridge Road. In the last 7 years, has anybody's commute gotten any better on Holcomb Bridge? That's what I thought. Same here. So we paid $16 million on a bond referendum and allotted money to a project that we have seen no improvements. So I've read all the studies that the city of Roswell has done. We're missing opportunities on redeveloping existing properties, to taking advantage of the huge healthcare market that we have here. We are missing out on getting personal services and small business owners an opportunity to succeed and create jobs for our community because we don't have enough space for them. We need to start prioritizing actually getting things done, and you need a candidate that's going to represent your interests rather than the donors. Thanks.
Mr. Horton.
There was a 2012 study that was left on the shelf having to do with the east side of Roswell. That study recommended that some of those shopping centers over there, realizing that retail was starting to decline from a physical standpoint, and so they made the recommendation that we would start redeveloping some of those shopping centers with mixed-use projects. The problem with the way they are right now, there are not enough housetops to make those various shopping centers viable. And so that's one of the studies that I think we should take off the shelf, dust it off, update it, and get started on redeveloping on that other side of 400.
Mr. Litten.
One of the most brilliant assets we have is the river. And we've had a study done on a linear park. But I would suggest that we can take and look at the simplest solution first. We have the Ace Sand and Gravel property. We have structures on that that have been there for 4 years. Why not get rid of those? It's an eyesore. And then number two, we can put a put in there and give us an ability to have less traffic and less parking on that street. And number three, we have the opportunity to do a brilliant restaurant on Riverside Road, designed by Rob McCarrow, who did Canoe, right next to Azalea Park, to anchor that redevelopment. And all three of those things can be done reasonably easily.
Ms. Henry.
When I served on council previously, one of my initiatives was the East Roswell Revitalization Study. When I stepped down in 2009, there was no longer the political will to carry that out. The Economic Development Study in 2012 confirmed that we cannot support our retail, and it also confirmed that we are under-officed. So what we need to do is be proactive, attract office. Those are our daytime visitors that will support the smaller ancillary businesses and just provide us with those daytime visitors, because we are all leaving to go to work. I'd like to see us staying here.
Ms. Sidhom, the Holcomb Bridge Road corridor is experiencing vacancies in retail shopping centers. The City Council approved funding for an economic development study in the corridor east of 400 and has discussed reviving the Roswell Development Authority to encourage development in this corridor, but no action has been taken. In your opinion, what should the city do to encourage economic development in the Holcomb Bridge Road corridor?
That's a great question, and this is a big priority for me. So I worked in real estate development, and I was a construction project manager in corporate America, and I know how to bring people to the table. What I think needs to be done is the city needs to stop pacifying landowners for not doing the minimum requirements to keep our city beautiful. They need to hold them accountable, just like we hold everyone else accountable. I think that we need to make it mandatory that we sit down for a closed door meeting, and if we're not able to come to terms with the business owners directly, there will be penalties and fines. There's no reason that our beautiful city should be left to crumble because somebody doesn't care about what their property looks like because they're busy making a buck. That affects your property values, that affects your life, and the businesses that come with that in that area are not businesses you would probably spend your money at. So unless we improve what we have now, we shouldn't build anything else new.
And Mr. Horton?
Once again, I think that there are resources around the state and the county that we can utilize to help us get the resources to encourage redevelopment of some of those tired shopping centers. Once again, the Fulton County Development Authority, all they need to do is be asked, and they're willing to come in and help. And I've got those relationships developed, and I know that I can get them to come in and help us do what we can to redevelop those shopping centers. And they might be turned into something more with office and mixed use than just retail.
Mr. Litten.
Two things. Number one, we have an opportunity zone in place already. We could extend that to incorporate the super target in the Coles area. That's number one. Number two, in lieu of the fact right now we don't have an economic development person, and given my background in sales, marketing, management, and negotiating, I would work very closely with Steve Stroud and Roswell Inc. to go out and court businesses that are considering locating here and ask them to consider the super target in the Coles, just like we did with the Herman Miller. Adaptive reuse, bringing in high-paying jobs to Roswell so we can address the transportation issue, the affordable housing issue, and the fact that we're not able to live, work, and play in the city we love.
Ms. Henry, same question.
Thank you. I do believe that we do need to develop or populate an authority, and it needs to be people that live on the east side, work on the east side, stakeholders, people that own property on the east side, business folks. We need all of those folks at the table. I don't know how many of you trust Fulton County. I think a lot of us were annexed into the city of Roswell because we didn't. I think it needs to be a local authority. I think it needs to be people that are passionate about our city. And also, going back to, we need to be proactive. Not only do we need to attract businesses, but that goes hand in hand with attracting Class A, B, and C offices into our community. The other thing that we really do need to look at is innovative, adaptive reuse. And there are a lot of opportunities out there. We just need to be proactive on it.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Jenkins.
I am on my third house in the last 15 years on the east side of Roswell. I love Roswell, and I've been living on the east side for quite a while. One of the things that businesses are saying to us is we don't have the spending power. That's why Target left. That's why Kohl's left. And we also don't have the infrastructure for the big businesses to come in. You have to have a couple of things. You have to have access to 400. The consideration of maybe light rail is something that we have to talk about when we start talking about attracting businesses. So what I will do is work with Roswell Inc., and we will go and attract Class A businesses to possibly have Class A office space, so we can develop that area so it can be a very attractive area for all of us who live in Roswell.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Sidhom?
I was first.
You're...
I mean, I'll answer it again. I have a lot to say. Do you want me to say it again?
You see what you get for the lowest bidder? All right, Catherine.
Mr. Horton. As Roswell is one of Georgia's largest cities, the mayor is called upon to represent us outside our city as well as inside. At the same time, we are competing with other cities and counties around the country for business and resources. What background, skills, or experience do you bring to this role?
Once again, I'm going to rely on relationships that I've developed over the last 20 years. It's important that the mayor of Roswell not just govern Roswell, but you have to reach outside of Roswell, develop relationships that can bring essential resources to bear on our city. Those resources can come from the state. I have a very good friend that's in the Department of Transportation with the state of Georgia. My good friend Brandon Beach is also the chair of the Development Authority, and there are several people that I have built these relationships with over the past 20 years, and I know that when we continue to build those relationships, we'll be able to bring some of the resources into the city.
Mr. Litten.
Again, I go back to 40 years sales, marketing, management, and negotiating with a myriad of different and diverse companies, startups to Fortune 500s. selling in what is one of the most difficult markets to sell into, healthcare. If you can sell in healthcare, I can go out into the business community and sell Roswell, because Roswell is an easy sell, quote unquote, compared to what I've been doing in the healthcare space. So I will apply that sales marketing acumen to this role to go out and court businesses again, to let them know Roswell is open for business and we need adaptive reuse. We need to seek out those companies that are innovative so that they come into Roswell with high-paying jobs like the GM Tech facility.
Ms. Henry.
The mayor of Roswell is the face of Roswell. The mayor represents all of us in the region as well as the state. And I think it's very important that the mayor is respected, and it is all about relationships. And I do have those relationships. We need to work together with various communities, but always in the back of our mind, Roswell comes first. We want to do things that benefit the city of Roswell first and foremost, and the region along with that, but we always have to consider Roswell first.
Mr. Jenkins?
I grew up in Atlanta. I have vast relationships throughout the state, and especially in Metro Atlanta. What we need is a great salesperson, a great ambassador for this city. And with my 25 years in the investment business, one of the things that I had to do is to go and court business, to go and talk to people about doing business with me and my company. Many of these people were multimillionaires, even billionaires, and many of these companies were billion-dollar companies. So I know how to talk business. I know how to bring business to an area. I've worked with companies that have gone public, and so my background in financial services, I believe, uniquely prepares me to be able to represent the city of Roswell, particularly when it comes to economic development.
Ms. Sidhom?
So one of the things that I believe is missing in all levels of government is a true heart for representing the people that you serve. If you elect me, I will be your full-time ambassador. I will represent you at the county, state, national, and global level. I have worked and built relationships with the top job creators in the Fortune 500 tech fields as a talent acquisition specialist. I have also had the opportunity to work with the best and the brightest in Chicago as an account executive, working with the top agencies in the creative space. On top of that, I really think that my background as an activist speaks for itself. I was willing to risk it all because 1,200 of my neighbors signed a petition demanding debates from somebody who was gunning to represent them. I risked it all and was willing to go to jail because I delivered that petition to the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. I was ready to take on whatever consequences would come to represent my community, and I will take on that same fervor when I represent you. Thank you.
The next question will begin with Mr. Litten. Whatever the outcome of the election, there will be 4 new faces on City Council. What's your plan for pulling all 6 members together and form a productive working group?
That's really at the core of this campaign. And think about it, Roswell. Go back to 2002, we had 3 incumbents up for re-election, and no one ran against them, and the election was canceled. Now fast forward to today, where we have 19 candidates between the mayor and city council. That's seismic. That's history making. For the first time in 50 years, we have an open seat for mayor, and we have 5 great candidates. That's democracy in action. And I will close this segment by saying, my mantra has been for a long time, my way is not the only way. My way is but one way. And if everyone in this room and everyone in Roswell could get up and say that with conviction, we would eliminate this divisiveness. My way is not the only way. My way is but one way.
Ms. Henry.
With what we're facing, leadership is critical. We must have the experience, the institutional knowledge, and the leadership skills. And when I talk about leadership skills, I am talking about respect once again. I always tell people, my husband and I have been married for 30 years, and we do have passionate debates. but that does not mean that I do not respect him or love him. It's the same thing on council, and the reason why we have 7 members on council. Because people come to it from different perspectives, they look at it through different eyes, and we need to respect that because people can bring fresh perspectives, things that you or I haven't thought about, someone else has, but we need to have those healthy debates and respect our peers.
And Mr. Jenkins.
What this city needs right now is true leadership. I have proven that I can bring people together. I have proven that I can start something small and make it something great. One of my primary abilities is working as a team, and that's something that I will do, is to unify our city and to make sure that the people who are hired and who are elected to do a certain job will do those jobs. We have an incredible staff, and sometimes I don't believe we allow our staff to do their job. And so one of the things I want to do is to empower people and to work together and to listen to people. I want to listen to the community. I want to listen to the citizens. We're supposed to be public servants, not necessarily politicians. And a public servant is someone who listens, who serves. And that's what I will do. And that's how I will bring this city together. And that's how I will bring city council together.
Thank you, sir. Same question, Ms. Sidhom.
Thank you. So I believe right now we are doing exactly what it takes to bring this city together. I am so proud of this community. No matter who you vote for, just know how much you are appreciated. What I think has happened over the last 20 years is that we've seen a toxic administration. We've seen corruption at every level of government. And unfortunately, I have fallen victim to it myself as someone willing to fight against the establishment. What we need are these fresh faces. These 4 individuals that will come, will become elected, will change the way Roswell operates. We had the last mayor for 20 years. The citizens of Roswell are going to decide what they want the next 20 years to look like. And I'm telling you, you deserve better. Your children deserve better. Your children's children deserve better. And we all deserve a legacy we can all be proud of. And it starts with changing the political climate and start treating people with respect. And that includes civic engagement. And that includes the way council members conduct themselves on and off duty. Thanks.
And Mr. Horton.
It is my firm belief that everybody, citizen, council member, everybody deserves respect, and they deserve to be heard. And I would say that one of the most important things is that we listen to each other. We're all going to have different opinions on various subjects. There's no question about that. But we need to first listen to each other and try to understand where we come down, where those people stand on certain issues and why they're there. Because once we understand where they're coming from, then we'll have a better opportunity to try to reach consensus. But we first have to listen and understand what the person is, why the person is taking a particular stand, and how we might be able to come to consensus.
Ms. Henry. With Roswell having 95,000 citizens and becoming a beautiful melting pot of citizens and families, what are you planning to do to ensure that all citizens, both affluent to less affluent, are included in the progression of Roswell going forward?
As I was saying earlier this evening when I was talking about stabilizing our apartments, many of those folks are the less affluent folks in Roswell. And I think that the City Hall needs to be the catalyst for change in those apartments. I think the city needs to take a position to recognize that we do have high crime rates. We need our families in those apartments to feel safe. I think that the children that are living in those apartments need to be mentored by our community. That includes our church groups, that retired school teachers. We need to bring this together to help Roswell. The other thing I would like to tell you that I'm concerned about is we're facing an issue with the city of Roswell with a plan and an agreement that was not kept for gentrifying Groveway. I am very concerned about that. That is a very historical part of our community that I would like to see remain.
Mr. Jenkins?
One of the things I will do to make sure that we include everyone is to first of all listen to them and to go and build relationships. In fact, at City Hall meetings, you don't find people from the lower economic level participating in Roswell City Hall, participating in the meetings. And that's because they don't feel like they have a voice. They don't feel important because very few people have walked the apartment complexes. Very few people have gotten to know them. I've been very active in the Roswell community, not only in the affluent community, but also within the Hispanic community and reaching out to people. So one of the things I will do is to make sure that we don't encroach upon some of these communities like Grove Way, and that we don't run people out, and that we treat them with dignity and respect because they have a voice also.
Ms. Sidhom?
This is one of the topics I'm most passionate about my platform. This is why I got into politics. Roswell is such a beautiful city, but unfortunately, we have failed minorities. We have failed to make this a hospitable place to live for people of color. We have so many opportunities to take care of minorities, especially our students. I plan to implement wraparound services not provided by a church because this is a city with a $100 million budget. There is no reason why you should be eating steak and your neighbor is eating ramen. It's time that we start using our taxes appropriately and start allocating resources in the budget to take care of these children whose parents are giving everything they have to live in a place like this, so that their kids can go to the best schools. Let's give them the resources to a brighter future with wraparound services. Let's also institute ordinances and resolutions to end the war on women. And whether you believe it or not, it's a thing. And at the city level, we can prevent discrimination and increase inclusivity and have representation for all the people here. Thank you.
Mr. Horton?
Over the past number of years, we've actually limited the housing for lower income, less affluent individuals. I've been sitting on the Georgia Initiative for Community Housing for a number of years, and we talk about this consistently, that the problem in Roswell is that our citizens are not educated on what the problems are. The Grove Way is a perfect example of an area of the city that desperately needs revitalization. And yet, we're not willing to talk with any organization to come in and revitalize those areas because they're afraid of having too much density or too much this, too much that. Unfortunately, if we're going to improve the situation for our less affluent, we're going to have to do something about the apartments that they live in now. On the northwest quadrant, those apartments are not very good looking. There are no sidewalks anywhere around the apartment. It's not an attractive place to be, and it's not safe. And we need to make it safer.
Mr. Litten?
Two things. There's an expression, high water floats all boats. High-paying jobs help float all residents in Roswell, number one. And number two, about 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to visit the Star House project at Mimosa Elementary, where both my sons went. It's a brilliant project. If you're not familiar with it, check it out. But we have a mismatch. My girlfriend works with the senior community as an OT, and many of those seniors are not able to get out and about because we don't have any inner city transportation to get them to a Star House to do the volunteer work. And that's just one example. So we need an inner city transportation system that's going to connect our seniors who are still so vibrant and want to participate in our community. And we have a need with all these underprivileged children that it would be a beautiful marriage.
Ms. Henry? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. My fault. Sorry.
Okay. I told you the lowest bidder. All right, Mr. Jenkins, what are your plans for making Roswell a more green city? Specifically, what are your plans to make it a more walkable city? And do you intend to expand the use of trolleys around the downtown area?
Absolutely. We need to be a more walkable city. We need to be a more bikeable city. We need to be the type of city that that is not dependent on cars getting us from point A to point B. And so one of the things that I will do is to make sure that some of these developments that we need to bring in, that it includes much green space, and that it is walkable, that the sidewalks are there. And so we just want to make sure that anytime we are building something, that we have a plan of making it walkable, bikeable, and enjoyable.
Thank you, sir. And Ms. Sidhom?
So first priorities, as we discussed, fighting climate change in our own backyard with those renewable energy hubs. But I really want to talk about how Roswell has an opportunity to become the American dream destination of the South. All the money is being made at the Silicon Valley of the East, right next door to us in Alpharetta. If we're not the place to be where people who travel to Georgia feel like they need to come to Roswell, then we're not doing a good job. There is money literally on the table that we're failing to pick up. So absolutely do support expanding walkability in the city, to encourage tourism, business growth, but also to make sure that citizens in our community are able to go where they're going without a headache. And absolutely, please expand the trolley system. It should not just go to a dead end and a few bars. It should go to grocery stores, and it should go all the way to East Roswell, not just downtown. There's more to Roswell than just downtown Roswell. So let's take care of the entire city, and let's do it together.
And Mr. Horton.
It would be important for each new development or redevelopment of a commercial area to also include a streetscape that is pedestrian friendly. In terms of the expanded use of the trolleys, this smart city technology that I mentioned earlier uses autonomous vehicles, autonomous trolleys. And although the trolleys are not expensive themselves, these sensors that we place outside of the about 1,000 feet away from the traffic lights can be used also to manage these autonomous trolleys. And the trolleys can go not just in the historic district, but they can go into some of our larger neighborhoods and bring people into the city. So I would be, actually I was the one that brought the trolley to Roswell on Friday and Saturday nights over the summer. And that was my initiative, and I am certainly in favor of the autonomous trolleys as well.
Mr. Litten.
I attended a work session yesterday. We were talking about HUD money that we have available for Roswell. And Jerry referenced a transformational project. We don't really have enough money to do a transformational project, although I think that's a brilliant goal. However, we do have enough money on hand to do sidewalks, and that's a start. And so for me, it's about seeking the simplest solution and getting something done. And that journey of 1,000 miles beginning with the first step. Let's put some more sidewalks in.
Thank you, sir. And Ms. Henry.
We definitely need more sidewalks and promote bicycling, but here's the reality is if you need to go to the grocery store, I doubt you're going to want to walk, depending on how many groceries you buy, or ride your bicycle. And what we're lacking are the cross-city connections. We're not getting the bus service that we should be getting from MARTA. We pay the sales tax to MARTA for bus service. They're finally putting in another route, but we need to be working with them and promoting the city of Roswell and ridership on MARTA within the city. If MARTA is going to turn a deaf ear to us, we definitely need to look at other options because we can't get folks to the grocery store, to their jobs. I know I don't want to ride a bicycle in high heels. I don't think there are many people out there that do, but it's those cross-city connections that are key to this.
Thank you.
Ms. Sidhom, Fulton County tax assessments have not kept up with rising property values. But for the tax assessment freeze this year, Roswell property taxes would have gone up by a significant amount. If the tax assessment freeze is lifted, should Roswell reduce its property tax rate, and if so, by how much?
So your city taxes are surprisingly low, as most of you should know. The bill you got this year was ridiculous. I got it too. I was mad too. But that is not from the city. We have one of the lowest millage rates in Georgia. I don't think that the city should cut down on its services to the community because the county is failing to allocate resources appropriately. But what I can do is advocate on your behalf to make sure that they are within reason. But the city taxes, frankly, aren't high enough considering our budget. But I will reduce the tax burden on seniors. I just want to make sure that once we cut wasteful spending, once we take a look at all of the opportunities to save a few bucks, that we do take advantage of every penny that you give the city. Let's make your money work for you.
Mr. Horton.
I'm going to be encouraging our state legislators to put a cap on the amount of the assessment that can go up each year and insist that these assessments be done every year rather than waiting for 3 years before they do anything. We've had even more years than that for the commercial property taxes and their assessments. I'm a proponent of to reduce the property tax liability, particularly the school tax liability for people age 65 and older. They don't have kids in school anymore. They paid their taxes when their kids were in school, and now that they're over age 65, they're retiring. To me, they should be reducing that tax on the part of
Mr. Litten.
Two things. We're on the horns of a dilemma in this city. Lee referenced it earlier. 70% of our money is coming from residential and only 30% from business. We need to address that, number one. And then probably like many of you, I stroke a check for my Roswell tax and I stroke a check in October for Fulton County. And the disparity is shocking, probably 7 times, right, with Fulton County. So I'm fully in support, and I think we all need to get behind the brilliant plan that Fulton County Commissioner Bob Ellis mapped out. Don touched on a couple things. Talks about a cap, talks about expanded exemptions for seniors, and a third component, a general reform of the tax assessment process.
Ms. Henry.
Once again, we're dealing with Fulton County and the Fulton County Tax Digest, and we cannot control Fulton County. However, I do support the initiatives of Bob Ellis and others in that arena. Also, though, the part of the question was, if the freeze is lifted, should Roswell reduce its property tax rate? I believe that we need to reduce it to make it revenue neutral, which would mean if the assessments go up on your property and we remain revenue neutral, it would be less on your tax bill. So I would support revenue neutral.
Mr. Jenkins.
If we don't address our residential/commercial tax ratio, we do stand the probability of taxes maybe going up. So one of the things I want to do is to change that ratio. Again, we have 28% of our tax base coming from the commercial area and about 68% coming from residential. And so as it relates to the tax being lifted or reduced, I would certainly like it reduced, and I don't know exactly how much, but I would say we have a lot of work to do as it relates to our tax base here in Roswell. So my biggest concern is making sure taxes don't go up and increasing our commercial presence here in Roswell.
All right, our next question will start with you, Mr. Horton. Since our roads make up the largest percentage of publicly owned land area and they define the Roswell character, what role are you willing to take in making sure that infrastructure and the infrastructure improvements are done in a way that maintains the Roswell character, knowing that the character areas of Holcomb Bridge and the historic district are very different? How will you work with GDOT and RDOT to make sure that these roads have pedestrian scale, bike lanes, and safe crossings?
Well, first of all, I think that our Roswell Department of Transportation, every project that they put together is looking at more pedestrian-friendly utilization of some of our roads, the ones that we are mostly responsible for. With the state roads, we don't have a whole lot of control over that. And we have to be able to develop those relationships so that we can get what we want in Roswell. Alpharetta was able to do it in their downtown area. They got a nice median down there. I think we should be able to do that in Roswell. I am especially upset with what they did over by the square a number of years ago when they put that extra turn lane in. Yes, they were helping traffic, but they also destroyed some of the character of the area. Once again, if we don't take the lead and develop those relationships and work with those people cooperatively, we're not going to be able to get what we want on those state roads.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Litten.
In the transportation work sessions that I've attended, which have been numerous, Steve Asenbrack and his department, have made the commitment that we will not move forward with any new road construction if it is not a complete road, meaning sidewalk, bike lane, and streetscape. So that's a huge first step, and I would completely support that. And then I think, again, if we believe that the best ideas come from our citizens and outside experts, I have a plan that has been modified. This is Andre Deswane's plan for around the Faces of War Memorial, modified by Jason Yao. This kind of innovative, think different mindset is what we need more of in Roswell.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Henry.
Well, I think RDOT does a great job in executing our vision for our city streets. That's not who I'm worried about. I'm worried about GDOT. And we need to build those relationships. And we don't have those relationships right now. We've got potholes on Holcomb Bridge Road on the east side that would swallow a Buick. And we can't get them out to fix them. So we really need to work on this and that relationship with GDOT. RDOT's doing a great job in my view.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Jenkins.
I believe we need to work very closely also with GDOT. One of the reasons that we see the beautiful exits in the streets in Alpharetta is because they have aggressively sought resources to improve their roads. And so that's what we need to do. We have to have a good relationship with GDOT, and that's something I can do. Also, as it relates to the historic district, we want to make sure that if it's historic, that it continues to look historic. And so one of the things I'm concerned about is that we have to target our growth, and we have to make sure that it is in certain areas and that it does not encroach upon the historic district. So one of the things I will do that's a little bit different is I will make sure that certain parts of Roswell continue to remain charming and continue to remain historic, and so we can keep that small town feel in certain areas.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Sidhom.
The majority of your responsibility as mayor, or my responsibility as mayor, is to be an ambassador on your behalf and build those relationships. There is plenty of federal money on the table that we could take advantage of to get these projects taken care of, to fill the potholes bigger than Buicks. And roads are designed to get you from place to place. So if we're going to talk about the historic district roads, let's talk about parking. I mean, how long does it take you to find a parking spot for Alive After 5? 40 minutes? That's ridiculous. We're not supporting our business owners, and we're leaving money on the table to make these infrastructure improvements, to get that tax base, and for the small business owner to be able to keep their lights on just because we're failing to invest appropriately in things like parking. I will partner with GDOT, and I'll make sure that we take advantage of every bit of free money we can get, and I'll negotiate those contracts down so that your money is spent wisely. I've managed budgets bigger than the cities of Roswell, and I'd be happy to do the same for my community. Thank you.
Mr. Litten, what does good development in Roswell look like? Pick a recent commercial project in Roswell that you think exemplifies your definition of good development.
I think good development is mixed use. You know, I don't think we can move forward in Roswell without mixed use. If we're going to walk our talk as it relates to live, work, and play, then we have to have more mixed use. And I'm hard pressed to come up with a project that's been done recently that defines that. And I think, again, we're going to have to take a close look at ourselves and decide what we want to be. Do we want to continue down the path of being 70% residential as a tax base, or do we want to invite in innovative companies so that we can diversify, as Lee's saying, our tax base.
Ms. Henry?
One of the commercial projects that I think just hit it out of the ballpark is the shopping center just east on Holcomb Bridge Road on the north side of the street that had the old Aqua Blue restaurant in it. They have redeveloped that center. They've brought in new, great businesses in there. There's an energy there. And actually, it's a destination place. I've talked to so many people because of the way they redeveloped that center. It's a below-grade center that was never supposed to perform, but everything that has been done by the current owner has just been a home run. And now it's a center where people want to go, eat, maybe go to another spot in the center, and now they're even improving on the interconnectivity in the center. It's awesome.
Mr. Jenkins?
I actually agree with Lori. I live on the east side of Roswell in that particular location. The way they revitalized it, the restaurants, the businesses that they attracted, I think is pretty impressive. The way it looks, it sits off the street, but the way the facade looks now is just very attractive and has certainly been bringing more business to the area. So I believe we need to revitalize areas that are blighted or underdeveloped, and particularly those strip shopping malls that don't seem to have a lot of activity. We need to go in there and we need to make them look good. We need to attract some new businesses, and I believe that project is a good example of that.
Ms. Sidhom?
Part of renewing Roswell means understanding that good development is sustainable development and smart growth is a good thing. And frankly, we have been surpassed by our neighboring cities because we've been afraid of the word development. So one of the projects that I do like in the city, but I think it is completely out of place, is the Vickery mixed-use development. I love the idea. Just put it in East Roswell. There is plenty of opportunity for mixed-use zoning, and that will make the city more walkable, more attractive for businesses, more lucrative for homeowners. It'll increase your property values. I love the idea of an Avalon in Roswell, and there should be one, but it shouldn't be at the expense of the character of historic Roswell. It should be designed to help grow East Roswell, because I'm so tired of the political jargon. It's a tale of two cities, guys. West Roswell looks one way and East Roswell looks another. Let's fix it together and let's get more good development, smart, sustainable development in East Roswell. Thank you.
Mr. Horton?
An example of good development, I think, is one of the more recent proposals that has been presented, and that's the redevelopment of the Southern Skillet property. If anybody has looked at those plans and what the drawings look like, that's an incredible improvement over what we have over there right now. So to me, that's the kind of development that we want to see in Roswell. What's important about that is it uses the character of this area and plays on the character of this area. There are other areas in the city that have completely different character. And this is why this town architect can take a look at the whole picture and say, all right, the Vickers, for instance, is terrible where it is. However, it would be a good project in another part of the city. But nobody was there to ride herd on that. So the project got approved, and now it's too late. We can't do anything about that. So in my opinion, we need the town architect to help us get from here to there.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Henry, this is a very short question, but very popular among our residents. How will you in Roswell?
Well, first let me say that I have a degree in visual arts, fine arts from Ohio State University. So I am very attached to the arts. I'm passionate about the arts. My daughter, we put her through SCAD. I've got to be passionate to put my daughter through SCAD. And she's a photographer. And, I think the arts are very, very important in our community. They're important in our educational system. There are many things that the arts do that folks just don't recognize or realize how much they help a community, how much they help in education, and I am completely supportive of the arts in Roswell.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Jenkins.
I am completely supportive also of the arts in Roswell, and the very first thing that I will do is what I have been doing over the last few weeks, and that is meeting with the people who are passionate about that area, meeting with people who have already been doing an incredible work trying to increase our arts community. So one of the things we need to do with arts is to use it as an attraction to bring more people into Roswell, to bring more people in here to spend money and to enjoy our city. So I will work very closely with the arts community, and I'm excited about doing that as well.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Sidhom.
I believe there's tremendous opportunity to take advantage of all the different type of art there is. If we were to invest in wraparound education services for students in Roswell High School or any of our elementary schools to teach them about graphic design. I taught myself graphic design because I was a real estate agent and I needed to save a buck. And I found an outlet for myself. Arts and culture is what makes the home a home. This is important to invest in. It's for the well-being of our children. It's an opportunity to make more jobs. It's an opportunity to prepare our children for high-paying jobs in the marketing and creative fields. And it's also an opportunity to show the world how creative and talented the citizens of Roswell are. We could take a page from the book of the Roswell Women's Club and invest in community organizations like those and do events like fashion shows, anything it takes to bridge the gap and bring our community together, as long as we all succeed.
Thank you, Ms. Sidhom. Mr. Horton?
I have 2 degrees in music, one in performance on clarinet and viola and the other one in conducting. All of my family play musical instruments. My daughter and her children, my son and his children all play musical instruments. The arts are an economic driver for any community. And I would like to see us have a real performing arts center in Roswell, a place that's not just a performing arts center for orchestra and band and various other types of performances like that, but also a place that might have an art museum. And public art is something that I've very much in promoting and have been involved with the Arts Commission and the Arts Council for a number of years. I am one of the biggest advocates for the arts, whether it be performing arts or visual arts.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Litten?
Again, I'll reference what the citizens of Roswell said they wanted in one of those infamous studies, the Imagine 2030 plan, which looked specifically at arts. Citizens overwhelmingly said we want more music. I'll go back to the plan I've already got in hand from Tom Ladow to do concerts at the Faces of War Memorial Park, Tunes in the Trees, drive revenue to Canton Street. Think Riverside Park concerts, but up at the Faces of War Memorial here, number 1. Number 2, I've also talked to Tom Ladow about a Roswell Rocking the River Music Festival down at Riverside Park in the old Ace Sand and Gravel, bringing in folks. Athens can do it. Downtown Alphareta's doing it with their Wood and Wind. Roswell can do it as well, and under my leadership, because I am a music addict, we will do that.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Jenkins, we're going to go with some questions that we received tonight. First is, do you support the city funding Roswell Inc., which is an organization that guides economic development for the city of Roswell?
I absolutely do. I believe they are very, very important organization that I support, that we need to support, and they are one of the most strategic partners that we could have as it relates to economic development. So the answer to that is absolutely.
Ms. Sidhom? Ms. Sidhom?
I agree as well. I think that we should take advantage of every opportunity and every organization that really has their ear to the ground, so that we can learn how to build a better Roswell together. These partnerships are essential to building a better city and a legacy that we can all be proud of. So I absolutely support Roswell Inc., Positively Roswell, and all the different organizations that work tirelessly to ensure that we that this is not just a beautiful place to live, but a beautiful place to retire, have a family, and grow.
Mr. Horton?
I've been the budget liaison for the past 2 years on City Council, and in my first budget that I worked on, my concern was we have this entity called Roswell Inc., and are they paying for themselves? So I did an analysis, and we saw that from 2014 and 2015, the businesses that they brought into Roswell, the taxes that they were paying, the construction permits that they were paying for, all of these other areas of revenue that they're bringing in were over $3 million. The thing to keep in mind about that is that doesn't stop just because those businesses are already operating. That continues on. So as they bring more businesses in, it's cumulative. So the result is they take about, this year they took about $80,000 out of our general fund, and last year it was about $40,000 out of our general fund. The rest of it comes from the hotel motel tax, so it's not coming out of taxpayer money. So I support them because they pay for themselves.
Mr. Litten?
I think Roswell Inc. is a great example where we can embrace the genius of the word "and." Roswell Inc. does a great job, but we can have an economic development person and Roswell Inc. It doesn't have to be the tyranny of the or. And under my leadership, we would explore that. Again, someone that's going to go out and court businesses all over the planet that want to locate in Roswell to let them know Roswell is open for business.
Thank you. Ms. Henry?
Well, I agree with everything everyone has said. Roswell Inc. does a great job. I think that we need to give them a hand with an economic development director and also an economic development board. I think all of those could work well together and with different focuses. So I think that looking at the big picture, then we could cover all the bases.
Ms. Sidhom, Roswell Inc., you've heard a few of the candidates talking about that department.
Hey,
excuse me.
I'm still here. You still got my attention.
Roswell has over 1,000 full and part-time employees. Many are retiring or leaving. Now, how will you address hiring and retention challenges?
Great question. So I am very passionate about job growth and keeping Roswell money in Roswell. We are so blessed to live here among some of the most educated, most prosperous, and intelligent people in Roswell. And all the money that's made in Georgia lives here in Roswell. So I am particularly a fan of having my grandmother live down the street. I don't want you to have to move to Canton or Woodstock because you get a tax break. We have to make a commitment to our seniors that we will cut taxes for them and not at the expense of our community. I mean, investing in renewable energy literally pays for itself and pays for the tax revenue that we would gain by keeping our senior citizens and our retirees in Roswell. This is a beautiful place to live. We need to have intergenerational conversation. It takes a village to raise a family, and we need every citizen of Roswell to be active and involved in it. So I will make it my first priority to take care of seniors and keep Roswell money here. Thank you.
And Mr. Horton, same question, sir.
One of the concerns that I've had is that many of our police officers and firefighters don't live in Roswell. Part of the reason is their salaries don't keep up with the cost of living in Roswell. I would like to see us provide some kind of stipend that would be a housing stipend for particularly police officers and firefighters. I think that would help retain some of those people that are so important to our public safety. As far as the other employees are concerned, we've had maybe every 2 years they get a raise of about 2%. I would like to see us increase the amount of money that some of our employees get.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Litten.
Three things. Number one, I understand from Ryan Lockett, who's our interim director of finance, that we do have on the books budgeted for our 2018 budget a pay raise for the workers, and it's well overdue. Number two, we have to, as a community, embrace Bob Ellis's initiative to exempt seniors. We need an exemption because that is the bulk of our taxes, Fulton County and the school tax. So we have to get behind Bob's initiative. If it doesn't happen, if we don't get behind it, it won't happen. And number three, I'll go back to what I said about connecting seniors with volunteer opportunities so they can stay vibrant in our community because they're connected to volunteer opportunities.
And Ms. Henry.
I really feel that it's very important that the city remain competitive in the pay of our employees. And also, I would like to say that the tone and tenor of the administration goes from the top down. I think that our employees not only need to be respected, and they also need to be paid. And also keep in mind, too, that some of these folks that we've lost, you've got to remember that we've got some very professional staff members here in the city of Roswell. And other communities, other cities look to Roswell to steal our employees. So that is why it's so important that we remain extremely competitive in benefits and salaries.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins.
I believe that everything rises and falls on leadership. And so if you have the right leader and that can build the right culture, people will be happy. And I have been meeting with department heads and many of the people who work for Roswell. And so what I believe that we ought to do is to offer some incentives, especially for our Roswell Police Department and Fire Department, and housing incentives so they could stay in Roswell. Of course, a pay raise is something that we certainly need to look at. And then, of course, we want to allow them to do their job. Sometimes as leaders, we cross the line thinking that we are the experts on everything, but we already have experts in Roswell. In fact, they're world-class experts. And one of the reasons we have lost people is because they have not been appreciated and they have not been able to do their job. So I'm going to empower the people who know the most and empower the experts here that we have on staff.
Thank you, sir.
I believe we are at the point where we ask for the 1-minute summations by each of the candidates.
And we'll start with Mr. Jenkins.
Okay. I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, and 15 years or so ago, I chose Roswell because of the great schools, because of the parks, because of the people, and because I wanted to live here. I didn't get transferred here. This is where I wanted to raise my family. But like many of you, our city has not been at its best lately. When you look at the news, you hear mostly negative things about Roswell. Every time I look at the news or something happens, it's usually negative. And so what I believe my leadership can do is bring back a positive culture. I believe through my athletic background, my business background, my ministry background, I can help us to win again. I can help us to be united. I can help us to plan for our future so Roswell will be a place that our children and grandchildren would want to live in. So I am excited about running for mayor, and I hope that I can earn your trust and your respect and your vote. I promise you, if I'm elected, I won't let you down. Many people have been saying, well, you don't have the experience, but inexperience is not the same as being qualified. I am qualified. Thank you.
Ms. Sidhom.
Roswell, 20 years ago, you elected a mayor who is standing right back there. Hey, Mayor Wood. And he has made a tremendous difference in our community. It's a great place to live, and I've benefited from the fruits of his labor quite a bit. What I'm challenging you to do is to think long and hard about what you want the next 20 years of the city you know and love to look like. What legacy do you want to leave behind? I'm on stage with a lot of candidates who are boasting about experience and institutional awareness, probably giving you some buzzwords about things that you don't like. like high-density zoning. We have spent too long not including people, citizens who deserve to have representation in this city. I am committed to creating a culture and a climate where every citizen is valued, where your needs are taken care of by the city government because you pay way more than enough to get everything you need right here at City Hall. I will make sure that every citizen is happy, wealthy, and healthy, and I am absolutely here to represent you. Thank you.
Mr. Horton.
You've heard some good ideas tonight, but I don't just talk about ideas. I've actually been doing something about them and have a record to prove it. I'm running to continue my effort to protect Roswell and ensure any growth is in the best interest of the entire city. I believe it's time for a mayor who will build upon what makes our city exceptional and take us to the next level. To do that, we need a mayor who is ready to innovate and adapt so that we can compete with cities like Alpharetta and Sandy Springs for jobs and new business. Only then will we be able to balance our tax digest, shifting more of the burden away from our homeowners. We need a mayor who will look for new ways of tackling traffic issues, implement real-time smart city technologies. We also need a mayor who will preserve our historic district and add to our gold medal-winning parks. This is exactly what I succeeded in doing with projects like Mimosa Hall and Seven Branches, which I worked on before I got elected to council. That's the kind of mayor I will be for Roswell. You can trust that I'll get the job done because that's exactly what I've been doing for the past 2 years. I thank the Roswell Women's Club for hosting us tonight and all of you for coming out.
Thank you.
I'm Don Horton, and I'm asking for your vote for mayor.
Mr. Litten.
If I were elected mayor, I would strongly encourage the city council to live stream events like this, city council meetings, and most meetings that are taking place adjacent to here in room 220. It's amazing to me the 7th largest city in the state does not have the technology back in that room there to live stream. Alpharetta's live streaming, Milton's live streaming, and Johns Creek is live streaming. But in the meantime, in the spirit of another history-making event, you can join me on Facebook, Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, the number 4, Mayor. Tomorrow at 5 p.m., I will be doing my second fireside chat from my fire pit in Martin's Landing, live streaming it. So if you haven't gotten your questions answered and you want to know more about Michael Litten, you type your question in on Facebook and I'll answer it. None go unanswered. It'll be the second historic event. Thank you.
Ms. Henry.
We have seen how leadership has been defined in the past. I believe we have a chance to give that word a new and vibrant meaning. Roswell is a city of living history. We are making it every day. We need to preserve our past with a strong historic district. We need to protect the character of our neighborhoods and quality of life. We need to prepare for the future with a solid economic plan that will breathe new life into our city. As your next mayor, I pledge to you to maintain and enhance the very reasons that brought us here and the reasons why we have grown to love this community. I hope to earn your support and your vote for Lori Henry for mayor on November 7th. And please visit my website and Facebook page, LoriHenryForRoswell.com. Thank you.
Well, the next question that comes to mind is, where do we go from here? If you are not registered to vote, if you have moved recently, or if there is someone in your family who needs to register, the deadline is October 10 to vote in the elections November 7. Early voting begins October 16. There are a number of locations this year where Roswell residents can vote, several of them outside of the city limits of Roswell. Please go to the city's website, roswellgov.com, click on Government, and look below. You will see a heading Elections, where you will find the various polling places, and the hours and the days that those polling places will be open. I'd like to once again thank our candidates, our two wonderful moderators, our timekeepers, and wish you all safe travels going home. Good night.
My button couldn't.